Let me emphasize that Canada remains for the rest of the world an enviable haven, a haven of peace and of immense natural beauty and wealth. The wealth I speak of is not merely its natural resources, but the peoples of Canada, steeped in your tradition of tolerance, generosity, and compassion, in alleviating human suffering and respect for diversity of thought and culture.
1992 has been a memorable year for the Canadian Jamaat. The Jamaat was privileged to have Maulana Hazar Imam honor us with a 14-day visit in August, where he met with the Canadian Jamaats across the country. This was a particularly fitting climax to an historic year, which marked not only the Silver Jubilee of the Aga Khan Foundation, but also the 20th anniversary of major settlement of Ismailis in Canada. The first stop of the visit was Ottawa, where Maulana Hazar Imam was scheduled to sign the Accord of Cooperation between the Government of Canada and the Aga Khan Development Network. On arrival, Maulana Hazar Imam was welcomed to Canada on behalf of Prime Minister Brian Mulroney by the Deputy Chief of Protocol. Also warmly welcomed by Huzurmulki Nizar Kanji, President of the Ismaili Council for Canada, Idmadi Mohammed Ismail, and other institutional and Jamaati leaders. Over the last 20 years, the Canadian Jamaat has been a major supporter of Imamate development efforts in the Third World. Today, the Aga Khan Development Network is one of the world's premier development organizations, dedicated to improving living conditions and opportunities for those in need in Asia and Africa. In recognition of the network's pioneering role in development and the innovation and pragmatism it brings to the task, various governments have signed agreements with the Aga Khan Development Network to pursue common development goals. The next morning, Maulana Hazar Imam was welcomed to Parliament Hill by the Vice President of the Canadian International Development Agency. There he met with Madame Monique Landry, Minister of External Relations and International Development, to sign the Accord of Cooperation with the Government of Canada. With representatives from CIDA and the Aga Khan Foundation present, Maulana Hazar Imam and the Honorable Madame Monique Landry signed the Accord of Cooperation. The accord reaffirms and consolidates the extremely productive partnership between CIDA and the Aga Khan Development Network, and lays the groundwork for future collaboration and greater liaison between CIDA, Aga Khan Foundation Canada, and other members of the development network. At the signing of the accord, Madame Landry also announced the selection of the Aga Khan Foundation Canada for the design and implementation of a $25 million training and social development project. The aim of the project is to strengthen Pakistani organizations involved in social service delivery and to develop more effective approaches to human resource development. At the signing, Madame Landry noted The work of the network in promoting sustainable and equitable social development programs in Asia and Africa, with a focus on health, education, rural development, and new opportunities for women, reinforces the activities that Canada has targeted as essential elements of its aid program. For the Canadian Jamaat, which has shown such tremendous commitment and support for the Imamat's development efforts, this was a very proud moment. After the signing, Maulana Hazar Imam met with Mr. Marcel Massé, president of CIDA, and senior officials to discuss issues of mutual interest between the network and CIDA. At noon, Maulana Hazar Imam had lunch with Prime Minister Brian Mulroney at the Prime Minister's summer retreat at Harrington Lake, where they discussed matters of mutual interest. Later in the afternoon, Maulana Hazar Imam was bid farewell at Ottawa International Airport by Jamaati and institutional leaders, and departed for Montreal, the second leg of the visit. Friday evening, Maulana Hazar Imam was welcomed to Montreal at Dorval Airport by the president of the Ismaili Council for Quebec and the Maritime Provinces, Uzarmuki Feroz Qasim, and other institutional and Jamaati leaders. Saturday morning, Maulana Hazar Imam met with the Jamaat at Complex Sportif Cloro-Billard, where Mourids from Quebec, the Maritime Provinces, and Ottawa were present. Later that evening, after saying goodbye to the leadership from Quebec and the Maritime Provinces, Maulana Hazar Imam departed for Toronto for the third stage of his visit. Hazar Imam landed in Toronto at dusk, where he was greeted by the president of the Ismaili Council for Ontario, Mr. Ali Ismail, the protocol officer for the Ontario government, and institutional and Jamaati leaders. Over the next 5 days, Maulana Hazar Imam met with the Jamaat at the International and Metro Convention Centers. Monday night, Maulana Hazar Imam dined at the residence of Huzur Mufti Nizar Kanji, president of the Ismaili Council for Canada. After dinner, in his address to the guests, Maulana Hazar Imam complimented the Canadian Jamaat for the tremendous progress made in the last 20 years. After meeting with the Jamaat on Wednesday, Maulana Hazar Imam paid a visit to the Ontario Legislature at Queen's Park, where he was met by the Honourable Floyd Logren, Deputy Premier and Treasurer of Ontario, and senior members of the provincial government. Later in the day, Maulana Hazar Imam met with the Governor-General of Canada, His Excellency Ray Natishan. Evening, Maulana Hazar Imam was the guest of honor at a gala banquet hosted by the Ismaili Council for Canada at the Weston Harbour Castle. There were 700 guests representing various levels of government, diplomats, corporate and media heads, and institutional and Jamaati leaders. In his welcoming remarks, President Kanji paid tribute to Maulana Hazar Imam's guidance on the ethics of Islam and noted that Canada has an environment conducive to the development of the human spirit, which has enabled the Jamaat to build on these humanitarian traditions.
The traditional giving of oneself, of sharing one's time, one's material or intellectual resources for the relief of hardship, pain or ignorance is integral to Islam. These are the ethics of Islam which you, as our 49th hereditary Imam, have always guided us to uphold. These have helped to shape the social conscience of this vital community. Throughout the world.
After dinner, the Deputy Premier of Ontario, the Honourable Floyd Logren, complimented the Jamaat on having in the past endured and triumphed over much adversity. He was proud that Ismailis had made Canada their home and had contributed so much to the cultural and economic development of the country.
I would also like to take this opportunity to pay tribute to you and to your family for your tireless efforts in working through various international organizations to alleviate the suffering of so many throughout the world. Your family has been committed to the ideal of fostering international understanding and cooperation. Your grandfather, Sir Sultan Muhammad Shah Aga Khan, served as the president of the League of Nations, describing its role as that of promoting respect for human dignity. Your father, Prince Ali Khan, represented Pakistan at the United Nations. Your brother, Prince Amin, served in the Economic and Social Council, and your uncle, Prince Sadruddin Aga Khan, was the longest-serving United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees and continues to serve the World Organization as a special envoy on humanitarian issues. through your spiritual leadership and close involvement with your followers, Ismailis in Ontario have flourished as a vibrant part of our larger community.
From time to time, this calls
The chief
for
guest, the Honorable Bernard Valcourt, Federal Minister of Employment and Immigration, observed that people who came to Canada 20 years ago through the Uganda refugee program and from other Asian communities in Africa are living proof of the enormous benefits that have accrued to Canada.
I said that the Ismaili community had made a striking contribution to the economic well-being of this country, but they have done much more. La valeur exceptionnelle de la communauté des disciples d'Ismaël attache au bénévolat, la valeur exceptionnelle qu'elle attache à la fonction publique, la valeur exceptionnelle qu'elle attache aux activités humanitaires et l'importance qu'elle accorde à la solidarité internationale par le biais d'une gamme impressionnante de programmes de développement international sont autant d'exemples édifiants pour tous les Canadiens et toutes les Canadiennes. Ladies and gentlemen, as the Ismaili community moves into its third decade, as a vibrant, creative, and highly valued member of the larger Canadian community, I have every confidence that the spirit of enterprise and the spirit of public service that have served you so well over the past 2 decades will continue to ensure your success.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my honor to request His Highness the Aga Khan to deliver his address.
It is indeed a pleasure for me to be back in Canada, this great and hospitable country. 20 years ago, an African dictator, Idi Amin, broke all norms of civilized behavior when he expelled all the Asians from Uganda because they were Asian. Citizens or not, Sikhs, Hindus, Shia and Sunni Muslims and others, all were stripped of their rights and belongings. Amongst them were many Ismailis. Tonight, 2 decades later, I say thank you, Canada. Thank you for having welcomed so many Ismailis, helped them to rebuild their lives and institutions, and to believe and trust in their future. But let me also say that there is a new president and government in Uganda, and I pay tribute to them for their efforts to rebuild their country and to do justice to those who were victimized by a previous regime. Yes, this is indeed a crucial time for Canada as you continue your search for the best constitutional solution to your future. But let me emphasize that Canada remains for the rest of the world an enviable haven, a haven of peace and of immense natural beauty and wealth. The wealth I speak of is not merely its natural resources, but the peoples of Canada, steeped in your tradition of tolerance, generosity, and compassion, in alleviating human suffering and respect for diversity of thought and culture. In the intervening 5 years since my last visit, much has happened in the world. The demise of communism as a political force has seen the crumbling of old political unions and the emergence of nationalist aspirations, oftentimes with tragic consequences. The major changes on the political front, along with the worldwide recession, have had a definite impact on the funding of aid programs, with the effects being most deeply felt in poor countries of Africa and Asia. And yet, in all this rapid change, there is reason for optimism. The conflict between the power blocs is gone, hopefully forever. The massive imposition of dogma on human minds may also be gone forever. Henceforth, artificial constraints on human intelligence will be replaced in many lands by new horizons of hope and thought. In the context of this change, the role of private initiative in national development programs, and in particular that of non-governmental organizations, is also being redefined. This has been recognized not only by governments, but also by major international donor agencies, your own Canadian International Development Agency, and the World Bank, amongst others. Now more than ever is the time for pragmatism and innovation. The Aga Khan Development Network, a group of institutions working to improve living conditions and opportunities in specific regions of the developing world, together with its partners, will share in this challenge. It is in this climate that on Friday last I signed an important accord in Ottawa for cooperation with the Canadian government on behalf of the Aga Khan Development Network. It is a further, very significant step in the close and increasingly productive collaboration between the network and Canadian institutions, and more particularly the Aga Khan Foundation and CIDA. Indeed, this accord follows on similar accords signed with the governments of the United Kingdom, Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda. In the past 11 years, the Aga Khan Network has enjoyed the cooperation not only of CIDA, but also of Alberta Aid and institutions of higher learning of this country, such as McGill and McMaster universities, as well as the University of Toronto. These institutions work very closely with the Aga Khan University in the fields of training nurses, primary health care, and education. Hopefully in the future, we can extend this collaboration beyond the social sector into economic development and culture, in which Canadian agencies are expressing increasing interest and in which the network's institutions are already involved. The Aga Khan Foundation in Canada, through resources raised by the Ismaili community, as well as from significant funding from other agencies and the corporate sector, currently supports no less than 40 projects in some of the poorest areas of the developing world, helping local people to work together for productive community action and self-reliance. In our experience, the people of the developing world are both resilient and determined in their efforts to improve their circumstances. It is incumbent upon us to join them in furthering their efforts, not only by supporting projects, but equally importantly, by informing and educating potential donors and the wider public about development issues. If in this endeavor the Ismailis, for their part, have been instrumental in playing a positive collaborative role in furthering Canada's international development activities, as Canadians, they can be justly proud. Canada is this year celebrating the anniversary of its 125th year of Confederation. Few confederations can have contributed so much to so many peoples in just over a century. I have no doubt that many of these peoples, including the Ismailis, will be looking to the next century as a time in which to carry Canadian ideals worldwide, and for no other reason than that they believe in them. Thank you, Canada.
Friday dawned bright and early as Maulana Hazar Imam bid farewell to institutional and Jamaati leaders from Ontario. After personally thanking his RCMP escort, Maulana Hazar Imam headed for the prairies and the start of the westward leg of his trip. Despite an unseasonably cold day, Calgary warmly welcomed Maulana Hazar Imam to their city for a two-day visit. Maulana Hazar Imam was received at Calgary International Airport by Wazir Mulki Salim Sumar, President of the Ismaili Council for the Prairies, the Protocol Officer for the Government of Alberta, and institutional and Jamaati leaders. On Friday and Saturday, Maulana Hazar Imam met with the Calgary Jamaat at the Roundup Center. To the Jamaat's great happiness, Maulana Hazar Imam gave approval for the construction of a purpose-built Jamaat Khana, the first for the Calgary Jamaat. Goodbye to institutional and Jamaati leaders from the prairies, Maulana Hazar Imam continued on to Edmonton for a one-day visit. After a short flight from Calgary, Maulana Hazar Imam arrived at the Edmonton Municipal Airport on Saturday evening and was received by Mr. Nasir Pirani, the president of the Ismaili Council for Edmonton, and other institutional and Jamaati leaders. On Sunday, Maulana Hazar Imam met with the Edmonton Jamaat at the Convention Centre. Over the last decade, the Jamaat has developed a major presence in Edmonton, and the Jamaat was overjoyed when Maulana Hazar Imam announced his approval for construction of the first purpose-built Jamaat Khana for that city. Same evening, after a warm farewell to institutional and Jamaati leaders, Maulana Hazar Imam departed for Vancouver, the final leg of his visit. Maulana Hazar Imam arrived at Vancouver International Airport on Sunday evening, where he was welcomed by Huzair Muki Firaz Rasool, president of the Ismaili Council for British Columbia, and other leaders. Next 3 days, Maulana Hazar Imam met with the Jamaat at the Vancouver Trade and Convention Centre. On Tuesday night, Maulana Hazar Imam was the guest of honor at an institutional dinner hosted by the Ismaili Council for Canada at the Four Seasons Hotel in Vancouver. In his opening remarks, President Ganji recalled the challenges faced by the Canadian Jamaat during the settlement phase. Under Maulana Hazar Imam's guidance and leadership, the Jamaat had developed a sense of identity and unity and had built strong institutions to assist the Jamaat in material and spiritual matters.
The Canadian leadership commits itself to always working towards achieving greater unity, playing a role in helping Jamaats around the world in improving the quality of life, an effort on which Khudawin has spent tremendous amount of resources and efforts. And I would like to assure Khudawin that the entire Canadian Jamaat stands behind that effort, and we will do our very best
to help Jamaat all over the world achieve the same standard of living that we enjoy in this country.
Nizar, institutional leaders, I'd like to begin by saying how deeply happy I have been during these days with my Jamaat in Canada. When I came to Canada, when I was preparing this visit, I tried to prioritize the issues that needed to be addressed during this visit and for the years ahead for the Jamaat. And a number of those issues affected the status of the Jamaat in Canada. It affected the ability of the Jamaat in Canada to achieve goals for Murids who are not in Canada, affected the status of institutions in Canada, Jamaati institutions in Canada. These were, in my mind, foundation stones which needed to be set in place so that the Jamaat in the decades ahead would be able to build solidly for future generations. And what were those foundations? First was the ability, the right to practice freely throughout Canada our tariqah of Islam. And this meant, first of all, that there should be Jamaat Khanas, proper Jamaat Khanas, that said the appropriate thing about our Jamaat in Canada in as many concentrations of the Jamaat in Canada as possible. This has been a slow process, slower perhaps than you or I would have wished. But it was a process that needed to be slow if it was going to be sound. We could have moved too quickly, we could have made mistakes, and those mistakes would have been carried forward by improper buildings in the wrong place, over-expensive, the improper, wrong programs for the buildings, etc. And I didn't want that to happen. The second important issue was the recognition of the constitutional bodies of the Jamaat as representing the Jamaat in Canada. And that meant that the National Council of Canada needed to be recognized de facto as the body that represents the Jamaat in Canada across the country. That today has taken place. Today, the Government of Canada, provincial governments, dialogue with the National Council or the local councils about Jamaati matters in Canada and Jamaati matters outside Canada. And the most recent proof of that is the fact that the National Council today is the body which will be responsible for bringing to Canada the 340 Afghan refugees who are still in Delhi. That is a small step, but it is a highly significant step. The third issue was the identity, the focus on quality, competence, and leadership within the Jamaat. In other words, Canada had to recognize that though our Jamaat may have established itself in unhappy and difficult situations in Canada for the majority of you, that is not the situation of the Jamaat today. I think the appointment of Nur Jahan Mawani as the chairperson of the Immigration Board of Canada is a significant proof that individual leadership today is recognized outside the Jamaat as being capable of coming from the Jamaat. And that is one example, and it is only one example. So when I came to Canada, I had a certain number of foundation stones in my mind that I hoped to see in place. They are all in place today. And I want to say that they're in place due to the leadership of the Jamaat, to the way in which you have built strength, stability, competence in the Jamaat in Canada. And I think the Jamaat in Canada and outside must express its gratitude to you for these magnificent achievements. So we have today some important foundation stones on which to build. But what of the future? What is your vision of the future? What do we need that we do not yet have in Canada? Have you a sense of what the answers are? These are some of the issues that we should be looking at. Practical issues for the Jamaat in Canada. Education. Without any doubt, it is a question that deserves looking at. It's complex, it's difficult, but it needs to be looked at. Housing. A large percentage of the Jamaat still today is using substantial quantities of resources on housing. And those resources are not investment, they are cash outflow. And therefore, one needs to look at the issue of housing. Education, not only in terms of schools, but in terms of higher education. The cost of higher education is severe. The motivation to achieve higher education is not strong enough. What needs to be done? Better planning, better career development, better thinking about the years ahead. That is another issue that needs to be looked at. These, therefore, are some of the questions that I wish to leave with the leaders of the Jamaat at the end of this visit. I would also like this evening to say how happy I have been with the organization of my visit to Canada. The forewarning I gave the National Council was short. And it's holiday time for many families. So what I have seen today, during the last 13 days that I've been here, has been the demonstration of the Canadian Jamaat to organize itself magnificently. And I have a sense that each organization now understands what it should be doing, it goes out and does its work, and it is effective. That's recognized outside the Jamaat and within the Jamaat. And I want to end this evening, these few comments, by saying that from the Prime Minister down, our Jamaat in Canada today is identified, respected, admired, and welcomed. To have achieved that is a magnificent achievement. So I hope that you will keep these words in mind, because I say them to you in my knowledge of what is felt by the government and others within Canada. On this, you can build a magnificent future. You will have to address some difficult questions, but I don't think there's a place on earth where difficult questions do not arise from time to time. So I don't think you should be more worried about them in Canada than anywhere else. Simply accept the fact that they need to be thought about. Your blessing is that you can think about them in a peaceful society, in a society which wants to see you develop your identity and your institution, and which has the resources, the intellectual and human resources, which it can share with us to achieve the goals that we have. Therefore, you start today from a different position from many other Jamaats around the world who do not have that environment in which to work. It has been a wonderful visit. I will be very sad to leave, but as Nizar has said, please come back soon. I will try and come back soon. So I will try and meet his requests. And I want to leave with you tonight my best blessings for a magnificent visit. I hope you are happy that I share with you the real issues, because that is the nature of leadership, is to tackle real issues. And your success in Canada is because you are tackling real issues with competence and wisdom. And Nizar has said it's the Imam. No, it's the leadership of the Jamaat in Canada that has achieved these goals. I will continue to leave you with difficult questions. I will look at the answers you propose. I will assist you in developing solutions. But ultimately, it is the leadership of Canada, of the Jamaat in Canada, every day, that is what achieves these results. Congratulations, congratulations, and more congratulations. And may this bring you barakat every day, the happiness of leadership and the success of leadership. Congratulations.
After meeting with the Jamaat during the day, Maulana Hazar Imam departed from Vancouver on Wednesday night and concluded his 14-day Canadian visit. The visit was a time of great joy and happiness for the Jamaat.
Serious questions that needed answers about where the Jamaat was going, how it was going to grow in Canada, what was going to be its vision of the future, how the young in the Jamaat would see their future in Canada, how the Canadian Jamaat would relate to the Jamaat in other parts of the world. And while I haven't been here very long, it's certainly true that the few days that I have been here already convinced me that you have made magnificent steps